You did it. I love it. That's one thing I always enjoy teaching is space. Yes. It's wonderful. So further through. Um, exactly how my kids look like off of your question. I'm gonna sit down. I love it. A lot of my kids. That's nothing. I'm gonna sit down. I couldn't do it. She told me to ask the guy on the right, and you were on the right. Okay, are you a participant? I'm just an audience member. No, I think you guys have to go to the other room. There's a room in the back that's this way. Okay, I didn't know if y'all were meeting in here. So down this way. Correct, down the hall and be on the right. Okay. Hey, you said you were looking for me, but I think we already. Yes. Slide passing that's right. It's slide passing that's right. Hanging in there. Price in the room? I don't know. We're gonna wait till Mr. Wall. I guess. Face. Look at it all. Oh. You're right. You're right. Some. We love Sim, so that lives her for here. So it's a song called Ratchet. Unless we put it on action. I'm gonna say, I just. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Oh, that's fine. I was just saying, if you said that, we probably know the video, but it was. It's one of the stare things. Kicking on the table, kicking on the table. That was my bad. New year. New year, new her. How's Tara? ไม่ What's that? So like, oh, yeah. Just different events for like qualifying things.
Hello?
It's nice. It always is. Just comes and goes too. But my favorite time of the year. Your family pretty much everyone. I have a daughter and a so we one of our oldest son is a Presbyterian minister, so he can't come down. Well, to see us during Christmas, of course, just like you all. Right, it's the same challenge, so we were in between running back and forth to Huntsville and had services up there and. Yeah.
This is Ron Snyder. I don't want to.
We're collaborating with our element members who drive the annual flyers. We get flyers all the time. So is your husband, is he called the police? Yeah, he's a great officer. I was gonna pass. Your teachers. Yeah. I can't even. Is that Montgomery or State Drive? You drive. Right. There's a website on the back, if you are parking or Bravo, where you can log into the bank directly. Maybe no, they more I do, but I'm not. Yeah. Yes. He's in New York. I said, oh, New York in January. It's so cold. Of course, it's what, 28 this morning here, so probably about the same time. Well, it's probably snowing and cold, freezing, below freezing there.
I can understand December because of Christmas.
If you have to, that would be, do it one time.
January.
Oh, yeah, I love New York in December. That's great. Yeah. That's why I know about Colorado. I love Colorado in the summertime. I don't want it. You don't like it in the winter?
Cold as
It is cold.
Did you agree, Ron?
Yeah.
Have you got any snow up there?
No.
Didn't think about that.
Breathing, I think.
You're sitting in the. Are you in time? Have you always lived in Alabama?
Yes. Well, I was first 6 months of my life back in Texas.
Yeah.
Nice, nice. Then you got
Army.
Army Jack, okay.
He told me 7 hours. Also bad.
Are the cheapest one, huh? Really cheap. When I met Steve, I didn't even know where Alabama was.
I think you're fine. I don't see these. I'm not sure where I cross the frame.
I'm sorry? You would think the later start time would be organized, I'm still disorganized.
But my trouble was bandwidth. I was driving down and I couldn't get my hotspot to work for 10 files. I couldn't do it until I got here. So
Right,
I'm afraid this delay is on, we're gonna blame it on technical issues.
yeah. It's always something. After the outage yesterday, I couldn't make a phone call, I couldn't get emails, I couldn't text, I couldn't do anything. I didn't even know Verizon was out yesterday, but it affected different Verizon customers differently. Like some people were able to make phone calls, some people, but I couldn't do anything. It was, I couldn't use my maps. So I was glad that didn't have, I hate traveling and not having a phone or maps or anything. So I was glad it was not today, but, yeah. Couldn't text, couldn't send, even normally you can send, if it doesn't go
The text
through Wi-Fi, it works through the SOS or whatever, or satellite, but not.
Did they ever say why?
No.
I know.
But what it was.
It was actually kind of fun in the state house.
Cyber attack or something.
I have Verizon, but it's cyber attack. I have Verizon, but I was never out. I
Yeah,
always had. It was
it's so
weird,
crazy,
yeah.
but yeah, it's through.
But a lot of the folks who there were, and so we were working out meetings like, we'll meet here at this time. It was like you went back before.
To how we used to
had
do
like
things
meeting places
before
and times
there
where you
were-
had to be there, yeah.
That's funny.
Good old days.
Yeah.
Back
It
to,
actually
I
was,
wish we
yeah.
could go back. Could we please go back? Is that possible? Go back to every cell phone. But still have great music on here. My music worked. My music did work yesterday. Because it was already downloaded. So emails I had already been downloaded, I could read, but I couldn't send. That's crazy.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. All right, so with that, I think we're ready to call this meeting to order. The first item is adoption of the agenda. Is there any objection to adopting the agenda as distributed? There is no objection, the agenda will be adopted. The first item after the adoption of the agenda is approval of the minutes from the September 20th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes, and are there any edits?
I make a motion to.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second is, let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, so minutes are approved. Next up will be our public comment from those who have come to discuss with the board. We have 4 people with us today. Thank you all for being here. This is a much smaller group than we've had in recent meetings, but I want to thank you, all 4 of you, for taking the time to be here and addressing your concerns to the board. At this time, we're just going to get started. First up is Autumn Zellner. Yes, you may use it.
Members of the Alabama Public Library Service Board. My name is Autumn Zellner. I have stood before you for months requesting that funding be restored for the Fairhope Public Library, a library that has been in compliance since summer before the fiscal year 2025 funds were lost. I am here today because I'm genuinely confused. Last September, Fairhope's library director and board members came before you in person, stated clearly that the library was in compliance and asked for funding to be restored. Since then, this board has taken no action. resulting in the permanent loss of fiscal year 2025 funds. I urge you not to continue this madness of delaying again and again for months and months. As I prepared for today by reviewing meeting documents and videos, it became clear to me that some board members may also be confused about the facts. I understand this issue has been on your agenda for a long time, but what might seem small to you is not small to the patrons and residents of Fairhope. That is why I have prepared a simple, factual timeline without opinion to help you make a ruling today. I respectfully ask that you do so. Mr. John Wall, at the last meeting, you stated the board could not rule because you failed to read the books in question. Books you requested back in September and told members of the Fairhope Public Library you would read. Please see the video for the executive meeting on September 18th at 1 hour, 49 minutes and 45 seconds. I hope you've since had the opportunity. Since November 20th, I have personally read all 11 challenged books. They are written for teen readers and can reasonably be read within a month's time. I am a wife, a mother of 3, a small business owner, and an advocate. I made the time. I would be very happy to stay available after this meeting should you have any questions about the timeline, as I have prepared for you the past meetings and what was shared. I have with me the transcripts of the September meeting where you can read exactly what the Fairhope Library representative shared. Oops.
Thank you. Alex over there.
After the board retreated to the boardroom at the previous meeting, Chairman Wall used the term bad actor 4 times to refer to the library workers and supporters who have been trying to explain professional, ethical, and even constitutional flaws in many of the board's decisions. He called for the board to be, quote, one of peacemakers, while accusing those of us who work in, study, and advocate for public libraries of behaving harmfully, immorally, or illegally, because that's what bad actor means, not someone who disagrees with you, but someone who is deceitful and dangerous. We who have tried to explain that parents do have the total and ultimate responsibility to curate their children's reading, we whose job is to develop collections and provide programming and services that meet the needs of the plurality of our communities, we who fill the roles of de facto social workers, unemployment advisors, tech support, research assistants, and yes, sometimes very reluctant babysitters, we are the ones who are disgracing public libraries as bad actors. But if I sound offended, don't worry, my skin is thicker than that. I've personally been called much worse in the course of my library career. I've been writing this rodeo long enough to know that many people who have fought for civil, legal, and human rights would be called bad actors today, such as Patricia Swift Blaylock, a social worker from Gadsden who desegregated the Selma Dallas County Library in 1963. Ruth Bolden, a Black librarian and civil rights activist who founded what is now the Weaver Bolden branch of the Tuscaloosa Public Library. Juliet Hampton Morgan, who was so passionately involved in integration efforts here in Montgomery, despite being vehemently discouraged and maligned, that the city council named the main library after her, and Emily Wheelock Reed, on whom the play The Alabama Story is based. If continually playing David in the story of Goliath makes us bad actors, I'll wear that label. I'll take it. I value my profession and the rights of the people in my community too much to do anything else.
Thank you. Next up is Amber Fry.
Hello. And you'd love to see me up here, but I'll keep it short. So in the general public library policy, the library exercises discretion in selecting materials for patrons under 18 to ensure that content is suitable for minors. These criteria safeguard minors from sexually explicit or other material deemed inappropriate for children or youth. I know we've talked about this before, but will there be a definition or clear guidance for what is inappropriate for children and youth? It feels like it should have already been there, especially since you're expecting people to apply for funding. Who decides what's inappropriate? Because the parent doesn't get to decide because the book isn't there for us, right? I mean, it's either not there for us to see or it's hidden somewhere that we wouldn't expect it to be. So it's not my choice, right? So is it the library's choice? Doesn't seem like the library's choice, right? Because if they don't comply, then they get their funding removed, right? So then, whose choice does it become? Your choice? The choice of the new position that you have opened up? Or is it the government's choice? It seems like it's gonna be the government's choice, right? So, John Wall, right? It could be your choice. It could be your choice. It could be your choice. I don't know whose choice it's gonna be, and there's no clear outline to who will make that decision. There's no clear outline for what material is deemed inappropriate. There is no clarity for that, and that seems very unfair if you're expecting compliance from libraries. That should have been done before the code change. They would need a list of subjects that were off limits. They would need keywords. They would need other criteria. Otherwise, they can't know how to comply.
Thank you. All right, up next is Angie Hayden.
Hello, board. Angie Hayden on behalf of Read Freely Alabama, and I would like to say that this board, their months-long ineffective pressure campaign against the Fairhope Public Library should end today, and their funding should be restored, first of all. Whether Chairman Wall has had a chance to finish his personal review of the books in question, which include The Hate You Give, a young adult novel about police violence against Black communities, or not, is irrelevant. Because John Wall's personal opinion on these books is irrelevant, and it's offensive to librarians and library patrons that this is even happening under the guise of parental rights. The pressure campaign has also been a failure. I believe this has been dragged out because the board believed that the people of Fairhope would fold under the pressure from the state board, which clearly did not happen, nor will it happen. The board has a decision to make today. They can decide to realign their actions with their actual intended purpose, which is to support and fund Alabama libraries, or they can continue to abuse their authority. I also want to express concern about the creation of the new chief of staff position. I would like to ask if any specific job description and duties have been discussed, if the chief of staff will be accountable to the director, if the position has been listed, and whether the board has already chosen someone affiliated with Moms for Liberty to fill it. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes our final presenter in our public comment time period. Next up is my chairman's report. I'm gonna start with just addressing a couple of the things that were mentioned there. Especially Alex, when I said bad actor, the main folks I was thinking about, and something that was very disappointing to me, was when I found out that through the public comment period that we had librarians and directors who were refusing parents the ability to get a library card that's limited to only the children's section. We want parents to have access to, or a youth card that had access to the adult section or the minor section. We're not trying to force either one. We want parents to make that decision. And when we found out when I found out librarian, we're not giving parents that choice, and we're forcing them, using the power to say, no, we won't even give you the option. You have to, in order to get a youth card, you have to accept the adult section. That's a bad actor.
Well, it was adult cards, which can check out children's materials. I don't know a single library with an adult card not check out children's materials. Those parents would use that, their adult card, to curate the items for their children and check it out for their children.
We're talking about children's cards,
But that's
the
not
library
the
is forcing
situation where
parents to
anyone had to
only
use
accept
the adult section.
an adult
Never
card.
decision. An adult card would never restrict someone to just the adult section.
No, we're correct. We're talking about children's cards. So we were talking about libraries who were forcing parents to only have access to a youth card that also had access to the adult section. Where the code changed it incredibly clear. We wanted parents to make that decision of whether their children had access to only the children's section or also the adult section, where parents would make the decision. And we had librarians who were intentionally overruling that and saying, parents, you don't have that option. You can only get a youth card with access to the adult section. And saying they would not issue a card to a minor, to that child, unless it also had access to the adult section. I find that disappointing.
That wasn't my understanding of the report. Having read the report as well, my understanding was that libraries would often have children's cards at all and allowing adults to
I've
curate.
talked with multiple people involved, including librarians in that system, and it's not possible. I don't want you to know that. Yeah. But that's where I find things like that very disingenuous and very disappointing, because if the goal is parental rights and the goal is letting parents make the decision,
we should be supporting parents to be able to have their child be able to have access to only a youth section and all adult section. So I don't want you to think that in any way I was being derogatory to you or to libraries in general. This is very specific to people who are restricting the freedom of parents. So I just wanted to explain that. So moving forward, we have several things on our agenda today. And I apologize, my voice is a little scratchy today because I have been doing a lot of talking over the last few days, trying to get things with the first week of legislative session and just several duties there. It's been an exciting time for libraries, and I really think that moving forward, I'm really excited about some of the things that are going to be happening. I hope Kellen, you share a little bit some of the summer reading program material. In your packet, you should have this. It's always an amazing job kind of highlighting the positives of what libraries are doing around the state, which is what I wish we could spend more time on. I know we sometimes get bogged down with the negative and the hard things, but I want to highlight whenever I get the chance, both the work of this board, the work of the staff in this building, and also the work of our local libraries across the state, because there's so much good going on that doesn't catch attention, doesn't always get the credit it deserves. And I want to make sure we always take a minute to do that, and look through the report here, and keep in mind the service and the professionalism that so many of our libraries provide patrons around the city.
That's great.
He did. He always does a good job.
Yes.
Good job. So that also gets us to unfinished business. The first item on here is the Fairfield Public Library. I know there has been a lot of debate on this. There's been a lot of negativity aimed at me through the process. Look, the delay was a genuine, not a delay in an attempt to pressure anyone or hoping that people up here forgot anything or anything nefarious. It was actually because Chairman Wright actually made a comment in the press that she doubted the board would even read the material. I took that challenge seriously. I want to make an informed decision. I want to have the information and understand the full scope. And so it's actually in respect to the Fairfield Library that I took the time to do that. I also want to highlight that I know some people will be able to read all those books in a month. I was not able to. I have a very busy schedule, and even with the Fairfield Library Board having multiple members who were reviewing these books, it took them from our March meeting until our September meeting to reconsider all of them. So I asked for a little bit of grace in the time that it took me. I did my best, and I'm sorry for any frustration there, especially from our members from Fairhope, but I wanted to do my due diligence and be able to speak clearly and inform when it came to the books in question. So before us today as a board, we do have the question of whether we reinstate Fairhope's funding or whether we continue it being cut. I think the question clearly rests on, does the decision the Fairhope Library Board made comply with state code? And that's the lens which I view this. I think it's the lens which we must. And in that process of reading the books, and I'm just going to be very frank and very honest because I think that is the only way to approach things in this manner. I put together a list of cutting out a few things in each book that I'm reading it from the perspective of someone who might be concerned with the book, pulling out what I would consider the worst content of each book. And that's for a review for this board. But I would also like to get the opinion of the Fairhope Library on the content as well, because I want to give them every chance to read the material, to read it to us, and to explain why it is not sexually explicit. So with that, I'm going to hand out these excerpts to the board members. If you'd like a copy. Okay. Yeah. And then Director and Ms. Chairman, if you would like to come up and copy, and like I said, I have mixed feelings on some of the books because I understand the author's intent and clearly reading the book as a whole. I very much understand there are several books in here that the authors had genuine parts, and we're communicating hard subjects, and I understand where they were coming from. I also understand that we have a diverse opinions, especially on matters of sexuality. And it's important that we as government officials respect those diverse opinions and that we try to find a solution where people are comfortable on all sides of the issue. That's my part. I know that that's not always what people try to communicate my part as being. It truly is. And I ask for you, in this time frame to know that's my heart and to communicate with me as we try to find a solution here. So I want to give you both a copy. And you are welcome to come and use the podium if you would like. So the first book is Beyond Magenta. You'll see a list of profanity in the book at the top of the sheet. I would highlight that amongst these books as a whole, the 10 books that were on this list, the F word was used 184 times. SHIT was used 297 times. The ICK was used 17 times. ASS was used 120 times. The ITCH was used 44 times. FAGGOT was used 40 times. GD was used 15 times. The N word was used 11 times. I'm just going to be brutally honest. I am not used to reading content that contains that amount of vulgar language. And I'm a 38-year-old man. 39-year-old man. I had a birthday. The idea of being happy, content, or excited about youth reading that amount of vulgarity concerns me. I'm just going to be brutally honest about it. I think since the beginning of time, society has protected young people from hard subjects. That includes, like I said, explicit, it includes vulgarity, it includes this type of language, it includes violence. One excerpt in one of the books talks about watching videos where a woman is pulled apart and her intestines are pulled out. This is not content that I can recommend to young people. And this is not content that I can tell a parent they shouldn't be concerned about. When I look at the vein that we have parents who are concerned about this material being in front of their children, I can't condemn that concern. And I can't
It
tell them
wouldn't
to
be
move on.
allowed on TV, right, like PBS or Sesame Street or something. Some of this material, it wouldn't be considered from that.
Well,
Children's
correct.
material.
I mean, look, to the press in the room, you can't print it. I had a challenge last time to some of the press. Will you print the content of these books? I would, and they said yes. I would like to see it printed because I think that people deserve to know the content, and let them make the decision. Because at the end of the day, this is what it's about. It's about putting people in power. It's about putting them in control. It's about letting them make the decisions. And when I looked through this content, I saw material that I cannot tell a parent they should not be concerned about it, and that they're blowing it out of proportion. I saw content that I think deserves consideration, but I want to hear from Carol. That's you have the sheet where with some of the content from each book. If you want to read it aloud and then explain why you think it's appropriate, I would love to do that.
John, if it's not, you should send this list to the board. I'm about what's going to be your ambush in the federal library. And clearly, I don't, the federal library board reviews this material. They made decisions. You are becoming the censor-in-chief for Alabama. You're substituting your judgment over the overall benefit of any of these books to publicly appointed people in one of the most conservative seasons. It is highly inappropriate, and you're going to be known as the censor for Alabama, which is not very good.
Well, no, I'm going to push back on that pretty heavy, Ron. I literally, what I just did here was explain that I'm trying to, look at both sides, and I want to give Fairhope the chance to respond. Like this is not me trying to.
disingenuous, John. That is not what you.
And you're breaking up on us.
You need to and anything when you're giving them something at the last minute. They made a decision based upon the overall content of these books. And you're now trying to use your judgment for a local board's judgment. That is inappropriate.
Quite the opposite. I'm asking for their opinion. I'm asking for their opinion on why this material should be considered appropriate for children, and why this material wouldn't be sexually explicit. That's due process. You as a lawyer should understand that.
It was the overall content of these books. And the idea that teenagers have not heard any of the words that you've suggested is just not reality.
Look. I was going to say I don't disagree. The idea that children do run across hard things is 100% true. The question is, should taxpayer-funded libraries take measures to safeguard children from such material? And I think that's a question we have to answer, because whether we like it or not, that's the position the governor has appointed us to this board to make those decisions. We can't just shirk that responsibility. We have parents asking us for redress of grievance.
So where are these books put in the library? Where were they in Fairhope?
There is a youth section. What is
Young adults,
Yeah.
13, 12.
We can't ask the library to dictate language.
and this would be a board discussion. Just
What I would say is that I don't know that I can represent our whole board today. I mean, they made these decisions in public meetings and that was their decision. So I can't revisit what my board has already.
I understand, and it was probably better to address the board chairman than you on that.
The only other question I would have for the board is, this is the first time I've heard questioning profanity and violence. I mean, I know that the focus has been on sexually explicit material in the past, so that would widen the scope of how we evaluate these materials.
I was using that as an example for the content of the book as a whole. If you notice, there were many scenes of violence and drug use, encouraging drug use, talking about how crack is bad, but marijuana is good. I skipped all of that. We could have the debate over whether that is inappropriate for children or not. If you notice the excerpts here, they deal more with sexually explicit for that reason. I don't want to blindside you with new content. I was using the amount of profanity in it to just say my shock as a reader reading the book as a whole. And I think that is very fair.
But the profanity is not the cause of the book being
And the excerpts in the excerpts from the back you have all deal with sexually explicit, not.
Well, I mean, I'll defer to Randall, but I'd be curious to hear each of your positions on each of these titles and where APLS stands. I mean, do you have anything to add, Randall?
Nope.
Well, I would love if you wanted to read the material and explain to us why you believe it's not sexually explicit. But I can believe it depends. Like, look, there's a disagreement, at least for me.
I think doing it is pretty sexually explicit. So my question is, why is it you were saying that if the book taken as a whole, but I thought that when we redefine sexually explicit, that specifically it didn't necessarily say, but if as a whole the book is, because there are some books that are sexually explicit, for example, dealing with maybe rape. But as a whole, that could be an important book and could be something. So then the question, and I'm not saying it should be in the teen section, that still could be in a young adult for 18 or over section, but it's an important literature to have kids that have access to it in case they're in that situation. And so but the point was that if it was, so that didn't necessarily matter. If it's sexually explicit, it should be, was kind of what the APLS guidelines state. So in doing it, and looking at it, it is sexually explicit for sure. And so my question, I guess, to the board is, y'all did not think that was it because you didn't find that sexually explicit, or that you thought that the work as a whole outweigh whatever was sexually explicit in it.
The content of the entire book.
Correct.
It was fitting for the subject that they were trying to get across in the reading material. Is that what you're trying to say?
Like if you were just looking at obscenity,
That's right.
but we're not. We're looking at sexually explicit.
Yes,
I'm not looking at
but,
obscenity at all.
but-
It's sexually
Yes.
explicit. It's sexually explicit, and I mean, you can't say, look at doing it. I mean, it talks about masturbation. It talks about orgasms. It talks about the sex act themselves. I mean,
that's the whole book.
In my opinion, doing it is actually one of the better ones. There's at least some educational value to doing it. There are look.
See, that's
There
where
are some sections and there are some excerpts that are in this copy that
but I go
are
back to that.
incredibly sexually explicit. And horrific, to be honest.
Yeah.
And that's why we had a public hearing and decided that what we considered sexually explicit for 6 hours. And that was decided at that public hearing. And these words and these definitions were in the public hearing that was decided.
Well, but I genuinely want to get a thought from Fairhope. Like, I don't want this to be that we're not giving you guys time. Like we will take as much time as it takes. And you know, read down. Well, let's take it book by book. Read down Beyond Magenta. Do you defend that content? Like, do you think that content is appropriate for children? Do you think it is not sexually
I do not
explicit?
think that you can take a few words out of a book that's 400 pages long and say that this makes it a bad book for kids.
I'm not saying
I
that.
also believe
And let's be very clear.
in the definition that we were given, the word purient was there. I don't think any of this is sexually explicit in the sense that it arouses someone. It's just making some statements and talking about it. And as a whole, these books did not have a reason that we felt they should be moved.
Well, I want to make it clear.
These were written for teens. The author.
I want to make it clear that we're not talking about these books being bad. We're talking about whether these books reach a level that parents should make the decision of whether their children
And
have
parents
access to
have
them.
made the decision. If they want their child to have access to those books, then they don't have a card that allows them to have access to those books. They do have that decision.
So these books are not in the youth sections?
These are in the teen section.
What
And
age is your teen?
parents
What
can-
age is your teen section?
13 to 17.
And it's upstairs in our library. It's not even where younger children go up to it. They
Well,
don't see
and
it.
let's look at it from that perspective. So the content we're reading here for 13 and up, and I think that's fair.
Do children's cards allow access to, if you have a library card that is for a, considered a minor's card, does that allow kids access to
Yes.
children's cards?
We have multiple minors cards, so
Okay.
you can choose a card that just has access to the
To certain
younger
sections
kids.
of the library.
And then you have some that will go up to teen, and some that will
Okay.
be inclusive of adult
Yeah,
sections.
that's great. That's really good. It sounds well thought out.
I mean, we had lengthy discussions, just like you are, about these books. I don't think we'll be able to represent the fullness of those discussions and how, because 2 board members read each of these titles and then presented it to the rest of the board.
I mean, look, no offense. You're asking us to say these books parents should not be concerned about. They should not be held to a certain standard. I need reasons. Like, if you're asking for us to be like, you can't sit here and say, I can't explain it.
Well,
This
that's
is your-
not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
He's saying he can't speak for the board of trustees, is what he's saying.
And I think we've already made our decisions, so.
Let's go. Look. This is genuine. Let's go back. Let's look at each book. Beyond Magenta.
No, sir. I don't
So
think.
you're unwilling to look at the books.
I've already looked at them.
But this board is happy to make this decision based on these books. Like, we have to look at the books. Like, I don't understand how you can tell me not to look at the books.
You should look at them.
Professionals.
I think you
have looked
should.
at these books. And we've made our decision on them.
Well, but please explain that decision to me. Like, that's all I'm asking. This is not too much to ask.
My definition is different than yours. My background is different than yours.
Yes.
And when I read these books, these bad words just flow right over my head. I don't even pay any attention to them because I don't like them and they're not important to me and they just don't mean a whole lot. But I know the
But we have
kids.
parents that go to the library that are concerned about that.
So their children don't read those books. They
I
have
have
no
an
option.
almost 13-year-old grandchild, and I hope and pray that she would never stumble across any
You
of
have
these
to talk
books.
to her family or father.
You're talking about very
Well, if they're in
few
the
books
library,
and thousands of books.
Yeah.
But
Thousands of
but
books
that's
there.
like saying most people don't get murdered, so we shouldn't worry about the few who do. No. We have to look at each book. Like, that's what state code demands. Like, we have to look at this objectively. Like this is not. You can't say there's only 1%. So 1% of inappropriate is okay. Inappropriate is inappropriate. Every child and every family deserve to have that standard, to walk into the library and know that children's section it does not contain sexually explicit content.
That's my question. It's either A or B. Is it sexually explicit
Or is it not? That's right. You can't argue that it's not a high percentage. It has to be
and
either or not.
then there, I'm not sure if Beyond Magenta, is this about transgenderism? I have not read the whole book. Is it? Because it says I'm saving up for a vagina. So is that they're wanting a child talking about wanting to. So, I mean, based on the definitions that we've provided, I feel like these meet the definition of either about transgenderism, as clearly it says, or about sexually explicit. So the question is.
Well, I do want to make it clear that the updated code has not gone into effect yet. So any decision made here today is based on the original code change, which would be sexually explicit.
Which there wasn't a clear definition of that. Is that correct?
There is a clear definition of sexually explicit, but it does not add language of transgender to that point.
So then I would think then the first book would not be in violation, in my opinion, if that's all it was about. It wasn't about the act of it, it was just the idea of it. So I think sexually explicit is where it actually describes how you're just saying you're saving up for something or you're wanting to change gender. I don't think that that's sexually explicit. I think it's discussion of transgenderism.
Ideology.
Yeah, it's ideology more. But getting into and I haven't gone all the way through them, but I mean the ones I'm looking at
I agree. I don't know. I do want to highlight though. The first quote here. She danced around the train singing, "I fucked a man. Go get your pussy off the fucking train." I can't defend that for young people, guys. This is not.
Well, going kind of back to, and I know this is getting ahead of it, but the definitions have to be defined. Then there has to be a process by which, because this is not just Fairhope we're talking about. These books exist in libraries across our state.
And
it's very important that we do not want to be the arbitrators of this. This is not what I think this board is supposed to be doing. I mean, ultimately here we are having to make this decision today, but this is not the decision that this should be something that is settled by our laws, our policies that we've adopted, and either it meets the definition or it doesn't. And it should be a position, within the APLS that's reviewing this and saying, does this meet the need? And then it needs to apply to all the libraries across our state. So it's not, Fairhope shouldn't be the only one having to deal with this. It should be because it's housed in the same section in 40 or 50 other libraries in our state. So it's developing these policies and procedures that make it fairly applied and fairly interpreted, and so that, because you're right, your definition of sexually explicit could be different than my definition, and they're not asking, neither of us should have, it should be a broadly defined, and it should be very simple, yes or no, is this explicit or is it not, based on this criteria.
I actually did an interesting test on that. So I am not a big fan of AI, but I thought it would be an interesting test on this because AI comes at it from pretty much a gathering of human knowledge, right? It's what's known, comes at it from an unbiased position, and comes at it from not even a moral position or definitely not a faith-based position. It's a machine. And I put some of the excerpts from these books and I asked it, is this sexually explicit? It came back and it said the wording you used is against the protocol. It is definitely sexually explicit, and I have erased it from the content of this thread. If AI, non-human, immediately defined it as sexually explicit and erased it from its, because it did not did not even lead it into cache of AI. I think that highlights some of the content that we're doing. And I say,
You advocating that we're going to come up with a list of books that are banned from libraries in Alabama?
No, move
don't
to
think
the adult section. Move them to the adult section.
that's right. I don't think we should ban anything. I think we should. I think we
Moving them to
should.
the
You are
Well, banning it when you're taking it away from the audience that they're intended for.
Well, look, I think that's very disingenuous because every day libraries across the entire world make the decision of which books to house in a library, and which ones not to. And they also make the decision on which section.
They don't do it from one board member of an agency reading a book and putting up a list that he ambushes the Fairhope people with today.
There is no ambush. I honestly just want their
It
opinion.
is. You handed that out today. That is an ambush.
We had a 6-hour public hearing and we voted on these definitions.
We've been talking with Fairhope for months. They reviewed these books, submitted these books as being okay. This is a very look. If I had not given them the chance to review the books, you would be correct. But they had that chance.
Oh, they never had a chance. You had your mind made up.
Look, they have a chance right now on every book to convince this board that they're appropriate for children. I believe
You already made your decision. I can't change your mind.
You actually can.
And I think that if you're saying that these books are sexually explicit, then you need to make a list that you give to every library in this state.
We did with definitions.
No,
And they said masturbate.
No, ma'am.
They said,
no, ma'am.
yes, we did.
Your first definition is the one you have to go with. It did not list those words.
The first definition, when Nancy Paxton had an email in June of 2024, the year before last, it actually did include almost the identical wording that was used in the final. It was not an official definition, but it was almost identical to the wording intentionally from this board that we then passed as the definition set forth. And so it was received immediately after the code was changed. And then it was passed officially by this board before you made a final decision on your books. So this is not a blindside. This is not a change in definitions. This is not a moving anything sideways. Very clear guidance from this board. And we don't want to get into individual books because there is no bad book. What we're talking about is the book appropriate for youth? That's the only question here. We're not saying burn the book. We're not saying destroy the book. All we're saying is it appropriate to house in a children's section or should it be in the adult
that
section?
they don't house them in the children's section. They have them in the young adult section, the youth section.
The youth
17
section,
under
but
is
that's
children in
that's
Alabama.
13 years old is look. We can first words over whether that's a child or a young adult. Let's just call them minors.
And
That's
then
a word
you
that
have
works for
where
the entire group.
the parents have said, okay, they can read these books and they have the different cards and the parents approve the different cards for their child themselves. They have a decision to make. Their own child they want or don't want them to have access to this
Well, the
material.
question is if this is housed in a section for 13-year-olds and you have a 13-year-old and you don't think this is
But what about the
appropriate,
card that they
but that wouldn't, the card would allow them to
Stop
be
the
in the
child.
13-year-old section because that's the age they are. So the question is, are these, if they're sexually explicit material, does it belong in that section? That's just the question to me. I see it more black and white is either it is or it's not. And some of these books could be great books and could be useful books. I'm not saying that. It's just the question is it a sexually explicit book? And if it is, does it need to be, is there a warning? Like there's a warning on the labels, it's specific. You pick up a video, it's going to say this has nudity, it has violence, it has, it could list all the reasons why it's rated R. And I wish there was a system of books that would allow that where we could very easily put, because there is things that are put out that are designed for a certain audience, even though that audience may or may not be ready for that material. And that's just the way it is. And there are good books that talk about rape or that talk about sexual experiences without the
Without
paragraphs
graphic
of
sexually
graphic description of what's going on in the experience.
Look, this, whether you think that I have made up my mind on this and it's useless or not, this is a 7-member board. And this is your chance, Fairfield Library, this is your chance to explain to the board why these books are not sexually explicit. And I encourage you to take it. So far you refused, but this is your chance.
The Fairhope Library has told you repeatedly, John, that they have reviewed these and think that they have merit. And I see no purpose that's being served by this ambush that you come up with language that you didn't provide even the board until this meeting started.
Well, I work very hard
they're
on
wasting their time.
I work very hard not to
Shooting your judgment
for this mass for legal reasons.
Fairhope Library, and that's inappropriate.
Look, this can't be inappropriate. All we're saying is, here's the books, here's the content I am concerned about as board chairman that I provided to this board. And I'm giving you a chance to redress a grievance on it, to explain to us why this material should be allowed in front of minors.
So I told you over is the overall content of the book and the audience that it's addressed to and the issue that it's addressed to. And like I said, if you think that a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old hadn't heard any of these words that you've listed, you're not in the reality that I've been in with children.
The profanity is a different subject. I find that to be supportive and concerning, but the item at question is the sexually explicit content, and that is not necessarily something that all children have been exposed to, and definitely not the specific stories contained in these books. That is new material. That is something that once it's in your head, it's in your head. I'm going to be honest with you. I read a lot of these books over the holiday season. I would have preferred to be doing something else. I'm just going to be, once again, brutally honest. Look, some of the books I found enjoyable, and they were well written, and I can see the greater literary context of the book, and I appreciate those authors. And I want to highlight that. Like, I am not saying that these are necessarily bad books, or at least not all of them. Some of them I think were bad books. Some of them I found to have literary value. I enjoyed reading them. But they contained parts that I would not want my child to read before I explain to them the content. And I think if I have that concern, it is perfectly legitimate for parents across the state to also have that concern. And that's what we're saying here. We're saying we received complaints from parents, and we're tasked, we're stuck with this duty. None of us asked for this. None of us wanted this. But we're in a very hard position where we have to make the decision on whether we have parents asking us, saying they're concerned about this material. And I want to give you now the chance to say, well, here's why those parents are wrong. But I need to hear that, right? Like, this board needs to hear that if you want us to make that decision. Like, this is your chance to explain to this board why this material should be allowed to stay in minor sections.
I think they've answered that over and over. I see. I wouldn't answer anything else.
I'm going to give Randall a chance to answer, but like I said before, our board has already made that decision. We're here to hear your decision.
And I would like to add that parents make those decisions. And if you, as a parent, don't like this book, then your child doesn't read it. But you can't keep that book away from my child. It's not your job to make that decision for every single parent.
We are in full agreement on that, and that is why I think we should make sure that every parent has access to give their child a card with access to the adult section, because you do have that right, and I defend that right every day. But I also defend the right of the parents who don't want their child to have access to it. I want to defend the rights of both sides of these parents.
In our library. So
a 13-year-old child can walk in right now and check out these books.
Yes, and mom can say, dad can say, oh, wait a minute, let's look at your books that you checked out today. You know what, let me look at this one a little more carefully, because I'm not sure that one's for you. That's
There's so
what
many
parenting
families
is
that
about.
do not do that.
Well,
Parents
this,
should
look,
parents
guys.
So why would
Guys,
you
we're missing,
then
we're,
put the
we're missing the
onus on the
point.
librarian and not the
No,
parent?
we're missing
It's
we're missing the
parenting.
point. What are libraries designed to do for their communities?
Excuse me?
What are libraries designed to do for their communities? They are designed to be a welcoming place where families can come in on both sides of this issue and feel comfortable and safe in that library.
Yes, and they are.
And if a mother
safe
comes
our
in,
library.
say a mother comes in, she has 2, 3, maybe 4 kids. She cannot necessarily police every single one of her children on what they're looking at in any minor section. And you can't expect her to. Like, we want to be supportive. Look, we want to be supportive of parents. We want parents to feel welcome in our libraries on both sides of this issue. And I keep going back to that. You're only thinking about parents on one side of the issue. We need to be thinking about parents on both sides. Both have rights, both deserve to be heard, and both deserve for their children to have access to those books or not have access. And the only way to do that is to create a system where and look, this is not perfect. I get it. There is no perfect solution when you're dealing with issues like sexually explicit material. I understand that there are parents who may want their children to have access to it. I am serious when I say I defend their right. There was push on this board in public comment to remove the books completely from the library. And I said I can't support that because I have always said that I want to leave it to the parents, which means moving it to the adult section where parents can make the decision. I have actually been an advocate for parents on that side. At the same time, I must also be an advocate for the parents who are concerned about this material. Because not to would be to disrespect their views on how to raise their children. And I just cannot do that.
The policy about that's already been voted on and approved, that
Correct.
sexually explicit material needs to be located in the adult section. So the policy is already in place. So the question is this sexually explicit? And that's what I think.
And the definitions have been approved by this board and voted on.
So I just think it's a question
Well,
you're clouding the issue. I think it's a very simple question. Is the definitions have been approved and voted on, and it's been accepted into policy. And so then the question is this book sexually explicit or not? It's very simple. I mean, if you boil it down to just that, is it sexually explicit or not? Yes or no? That's the
I
And
agree.
the board, their hope determined that it was not, and John has determined it is. I think we ought to just go ahead and have the motion. John, you clearly are in favor of not allowing Fairhope to, which pays a disproportionate amount of taxes to receive state funds.
Well, I would
Go
still like to hear their
doing
opinion.
it for many months now, and it was a foreordained conclusion that you've made. But we don't need to keep being a dead horse to death.
Well, no. It is very disingenuous to say I've already made up my mind. I really did want to hear their opinion. Like, this was not this.
Yeah. Oh yes. You protest too much.
Why did we have a 6-hour public hearing? Why did we vote on definitions if we're not going to follow them? Just like you said, we have clear definitions. You look at the book doing it. It has 5 of those things in our definitions in that one book. That one book shows there is a violation there. That is not, from my opinion, that is what the public hearing overwhelmingly said they wanted for the state of Alabama.
That's an education book, which is.
But it is what the public hearing, is what the result of the public hearing, of thousands of letters, of 6 hours of public hearing said.
It's how it's in the code.
So John, my question
It is what's in the.
Well, I mean, let's.
If the board votes that this material is sexually explicit by the definitions that we've already approved, then does Fairhope have the opportunity? What is that process that's set up? And
This is why I wanted to hear from Fairhope, because the power rests completely with you. You at any point can be compliant and receive your funding. This is not. I want to make this very clear. We don't want you not to get funding. We want to fund Fairhope Public Library. The only question that we can't do it if you're not compliant with the code. That's in your hands.
Compliant every one of these books is sexually explicit?
Well, I would like to hear your argument on which ones are not. Like, that's literally what I'm asking
You
for.
already said each of these is not.
It's not.
So
So you don't think doing it is sexually explicit? If you look on that book right
that's what
there.
our board voted on.
Okay.
So I'm waiting to hear what you say.
So,
Have you got the
I
list of
think John
definitions on
Lee
masturbate, on
said
oral and
that
anal
he's going to
sex?
say whether or
And
not
look
it's
at, it's
sexual.
specifically stated in that book, multiple times.
So this board is saying, yes, that doing it is sexually explicit.
That's the definitions we sent out, yes, that we voted on, yes.
So that book has to be removed from every library.
Move to the adult section. That was what we said. Well, that's
John,
what
are
the
we going to begin to enforce this with all the libraries in the state, many of which have the same book? Are we going to start?
We are going to be consistent across the entire state. That is our duty, and that's what we've got to
Starting
for
to
fear
come
of.
up, are you going to have
So you're gonna create a list.
the agency send out a?
I hope we don't have to. I hope libraries as a whole can read definitions. And understand, just as they do in the movie industry, just as they do in the video game industry,
I
just as they
think
do.
if there's a list, it's not unsurmountable. There's people are bringing them up.
Yeah.
People are bringing, the list will eventually get developed just by people bringing books up for consideration and being looked at. So it'll be it'll happen at the local library. People are looking.
I want to be clear though, that the books are not what's that question. The question is the content. And it has to be that's how every other rating system works. Because new books will be written, and those books must be judged on their content. You can't. There's no master list because every day new books are written or new books are in consideration that may not have been in publication before or in that library's collection before. And so I think it's important that our libraries know that they're not necessarily need to check a list. I also don't want to be aggressive to libraries and say, look, if you missed a book, because I know that you don't necessarily read every book that comes in. We're trying to be very genuine and generous towards our libraries, and that's why I always send when I get a complaint from a patron at a local library, I always send them to their local board because most of the time that has been able to settle these disputes because when they parents talk to their local board, those are the best solutions because they can come to a conclusion at the local level. That's what we want. That's my heart. And so I feel I hate to have to go down the road of creating a book list because I think the genuine answer to this is the same we see in every other area of life, whether it's movies, whether it's video games, whether it's not allowing children to buy guns, not allowing them to drink. We know that we as a society protect children. It's not up for debate. Since the beginning of time, society has protected children from hard things. The only question is, does this material reach that level and that threshold? And I think that is a fair question. And I understand that there are different opinions on it. But at the end of the day, we have to decide at what level we as public officials respect, think this is something that's controversial enough that parents need to make the decision instead of us.
How can there be different opinions on it when we passed a list of definitions with specific words and these specific words are in it? How is that an opinion?
Because opinions aren't about content, they're about access and about choice.
But the definitions we passed to receive funding based on the 6-hour public hearing was about specific definitions.
Sure, but the
And so-
having folks all parts anyway, if we're presenting this as an issue about content, then ultimately it is about access. It's about people's right to access materials freely and equitably. It's about the right for parents to make this decision. The fact that this administrative board is sitting here talking about content instead of actually trusting local library board speaks to the fact that we're way off the beaten path of what this
What I'm talking about is specific words and definitions that we have approved based policy and
Right, what I'm saying
specific
is that
definitions.
that is a distraction.
And it is simply, would you receive funding if you have these books with these definitions and these words? And so if you choose to keep them, then that's telling us that you are not wanting the
So you
funding.
don't want to keep the book at all. Is that what
If
you're
you're
saying?
keeping them in the children's section or the minor section.
Yeah, we've already talked about that.
So that by them saying they want to keep them in the minor section, what they're telling
They just say
us.
they've kept the books.
Yeah, if they want to keep them in the minor section, they're telling us they don't want our funding because that is our policy. So that is what that's what you're saying, is if you don't wanna move them to the adult section, you don't want our funding.
So,
My
so
question, go ahead.
is it all of these books on this?
That's my
in
question,
this,
is,
packet?
No. So that was the research I did for the board, right? And look, there are some of the books that have a lot more than these. I just pulled out a few excerpts so the board can make an informed decision. I don't know if any of the rest of you read any of the books, but I wanted to provide that as a resource to my board members. And I'm not going to say that's the only places in the books I found concerning. These were just excerpts that I thought would provide the worst content out of each book. If that makes sense.
And are we going to, John, or are you going to propose then that we send out this list of books to all the libraries in the state to tell them they're going to lose state funding if they're in their teen sections?
If any book contains sexually explicit content as defined by this board and it is located in the minor sections of a library, they will be given, they need to go through the local process. But if they refuse to move those books, yes, this board will hold them accountable.
Well, so they can't even go through the local process. You're just saying black and white.
Yeah,
You cannot have
that's
it.
what you.
Well, we've been very, we've been very.
Fairhope went through the local process. They happen to disagree with you, and you as editor-in-chief are saying they're wrong and you're right.
Well, no, Mr. Stein,
We're wasting time.
the content in the book will decide whether they're wrong or right. That has nothing to do. It's about the books and what is the material in the books that are a question.
In your opinion, as opposed to the opinion of the board of the Fairhope Public Library. So that's where we are, and like I said, you wanting to make a motion to permanently to suspend the fund, continue the suspension of the funding of
No,
Fairhope?
not at all. Not at all. I think the only question is, the vote has to be, are they in compliance? Because they've already been ruled out of compliance by this board. And so the question now is, are they in compliance where they can start receiving
They're not
it?
in compliance then? So that's an effect if they can't get funding.
So my question is, if this board finds that these books make Fairhope not in compliance, what is the process? Is if we say, okay, Fairhope, these books are not in compliance, they are sexually explicit, therefore they need to be moved. Is there a time period when you all would be willing to relocate these books to get the funding? Or are you saying, we don't care what your opinion is, we think they're fine, so we're not gonna move them? So that's just.
I certainly would bring that information to our full board, and that would be their decision, what their next step would be.
Okay.
Randall, were you gonna say something?
I'm just gonna say that it's been 11 months. I'd like a decision made today.
Oh, we will be deciding on whether you are in compliance or not. Yes.
Okay.
Right. And look, I find it very disingenuous to complain about 11 months when from March until September we were waiting on you. Let's be clear on that. So I get it, but try to be honest with that. Try to be honest with that.
We were doing what you asked us to do.
And I appreciate it. And look, I'm now asking you if you want any comment as the board is about to look at these books. If you want to be involved or give any comment to the board, I want to hear from you.
We've already decided about this.
I think that other public libraries in Alabama will be at risk of misinterpreting the code as according to you in the same way that we might have. So I think there should be some kind of communication with the rest of
I agree. We look, and there was a lot of different information provided, opinion shifting a lot with the last director of this board. That is not going to be the case moving forward. We're going to be clear. We're going to be open. We're going to be honest. That was the goal with the create. It was actually a request from libraries. We've gotten a lot of negativity towards creating the definition of sexually explicit, but that was because libraries asked us for that definition, and we wanted to provide that guidance. We wanted to be clear. We wanted to provide them with the information of what this board, how it defines sexually explicit, and how the books will be judged. And you can say you have a different opinion on that definition, but you're free to have interpret anything you want any way you want, but this board is going to rule based on that definition. We have that authority, and we've clearly set that out. We've been open and honest with the local library side.
Are those definitions in the code?
The point of order, they're not codified yet.
The Constitution also has a different definition. Are they?
The Constitution has no definition on sexually explicit. As far as codified, this board has the power to make a decision on to set definitions without necessarily being in the code. And that was done as a courtesy for local libraries, so they would know what to look for when looking at the content of new books coming into their collections. The same way that would be provided for anyone else who's looking at a rating system. We wanted to provide clarity where local libraries would have the information needed, so there would not be differences of opinion or questions over, did you mean this or did you mean that? It's clear. It's been passed to provide that clarity, and it's what books will be weighed on when making the decision of whether it is or is not sexually explicit.
So we're not following the order for writer's test anymore?
All right, so I think we're going to just take it book by book. You all have the packet. You have this. I guess my question would be, for public record, does anyone want to read the content?
No.
No. Why not? All right, so beyond magenta. Thoughts?
I think it's more about transgenderism than sexually explicit. So this is to me the least offensive of just based on the sex.
And would currently not be.
So I think that beyond magenta, based on the others, I don't see anything that's vulgar, but I don't think sexually explicit.
All right. All right, Ben. We need to take a vote on that.
Are we going to vote on 10 books? John, is that what you're proposing?
I think we have to, Ron.
Oh, that's ridiculous. We don't have to do that. We're doing that on the basis of a summary that you didn't provide anyone in advance.
Ron, the reason I think we should vote on it is so that Fairhope knows whether or not, which books are being said to be sexually explicit and which books need to be moved to be in compliance. I do think it's important that we do this. So we're just on this list of books.
Because you haven't, I don't think most of the board members have read each of these books. And I don't think we should be reading them. I think it's inappropriate for us to be doing that. So we're going to then vote on books based upon a summary that John has handed out of some words and selected books that trigger this, or some passages. I just think that is inappropriate. And I guess I would again move that Fairhope's funding be restored. I think we have put them through this for way too long. I think it's clear, John, your opinion is never going to change. You're substituting your opinion for that local board. I always thought the majority of this board believed in small government. And what we have been doing by the actions recently of this board is we're taking big government to the ultimate degree. And that's
the smallest level of government is the family unit. And that's where we want to lead this decision whenever possible.
The smallest level of government in this sense is the Fairhope Public Library that's appointed by the City Council of Fairhope.
I would disagree with that and say it's the family, but I can understand, I can respect your opinion on that.
But anyway, I think we're wasting a lot of time with this and I again would move that Fairhope's funding be restored.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? All right, hearing no second, dies for lack of a second. All right. We have two choices, and the board will decide this. We could either just look at the packet as a whole and say that the books contained in the Fairhope Library do or do not contain sexually explicit content, or we can go through it book by book. I leave that to a motion to the board to decide.
As a whole.
All right, do you want to make a motion? To make the decision based on the titles as a whole?
I make a motion that we make a decision based on
The content of
The
the content of the books as a whole.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a second to that?
I second it.
All right, is there any discussion?
Could you say your names, please, when you make these decisions?
Amy Minton.
Who seconded that?
I second it.
Deborah Windsor.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, hearing no discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
All right, good. Motion passes 3-2. All right, so we're looking at the content as a whole. I'm going to give the board members a chance. Does anyone, do any of you want more time to look at the content? Is that more time? Okay, all right, so the question in hand for the board then is, does the material of the books provided by, the list of books provided by Fairhope contain sexually explicit content?
All in
Yes.
favor?
So I would need a motion saying that it does or does not contain sexually explicit content.
I would like to make a motion that it does contain sexually explicit content, and therefore we should not restore the funding.
All right. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
Any second?
The second was Ms. Stevens.
Okay.
All right. Hearing no discussion, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. All those opposed?
No.
Once again, 3-2. All right. I do want to thank the Fairhope Library for being up here. And I will say again that if you all want to come back and defend the books, you now have the content, you are welcome to at any point. I genuinely would have liked to hear your opinion on the books and the content in the books, each one. And I hope at some point, if you want to take it back, tell the board my request, you are welcome to do so. If they would like to come up here as a whole, I make that invitation to them. We want to work with Fairhope as much as possible, but I really do need you to be able to explain why these books are not sexually explicit. If you,
I guess I'm
believe it or not.
confused. So are you saying to become compliant, every book in this packet would need to be moved to an adult section? I know one member, Sandra Stevens, said that she did not think Beyond Magenta met sexually explicit.
We voted to take the consideration of the packet as a whole of whether it contains sexually explicit. And the answer was yes. The
So
material
what does that mean, I
the
guess?
material here was sexually explicit.
So each title is sexually explicit.
Or the material contained in these books contains sexually explicit content.
So each title contains sexually explicit material.
Well, Ron didn't want to look at each book, and so the board did not vote to look at each book.
How would I know if we're becoming compliant or not, I guess?
By removing sexually explicit content is based on.
To the
So if you look it up again and you go back and say,
to
well,
every library and say these books need to be.
But, I mean,
The definitions we gave you.
So at this time, would you like to explain to us why the material is not? Would you finally like to explain? I would love to hear it.
can you explain to me why it is?
Yes,
Yes.
very easily.
Okay.
That one is so easy.
Page, I guess.
All right, let's look at the Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, no, I thought you were talking about the first one that he was discussing.
Beyond Magenta, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, you want Beyond Magenta?
yeah, that's what he was talking about.
Look, I actually agree with Sandra Stevens on Beyond Magenta. I
Well, you
think
said the whole
it's
package,
strange.
Well, I
Well, the
think
whole packet contains
it
material
contains sexual
that
explicit.
is.
So if we weren't gonna go individually, we had to vote, is there sexual explicit material on this? Yes. But if we went book by book, I would say that the first book, it was not, I felt like it was
More ideology.
It was more ideology and not sexually explicit.
But the new policies would prevent that one from being in the.
But we're not talking about that.
But we're not talking about that. Yeah.
Today we're just talking about based on Fairhope, based on
Sexually
previously.
explicit. Yeah.
So, But when you go through the others, I've not found another one that didn't specifically, if it talks about the process of having sex and goes into detail of it, then that's sexually explicit in my opinion.
So
And based on those definitions, it
would
shouldn't be on
any
there.
conversation sexuality qualify as sexually explicit?
Can I
Describing the sex act.
Can I ask you a question? Did you read the definition provided by this board?
I did.
Do you elaborate? Good. All right. So that is the opinion of this board of what sexually explicit is.
But some of those are just bullet points. Does that mean if they include the word masturbation anywhere in the text, that is sexually explicit?
Anywhere in the book,
And-
one time in a book.
Like it doesn't describe it, it just mentions the word.
Unless it's like a bio, we have exemptions for historical, we have exemptions for human anatomy, educational books, right? I'm just gonna look. Let's just stop. I'm gonna read. I really didn't want to read anything, but I'm gonna do it because I think this. But pretty soon he took off her bra and started kissing her breast, and then he pulled down her pants, and she started moaning. I think they were both very drunk. He reached to take off her pants, but she started crying. So he reached for his own. He pulled his pants down. He pulled his pants and underwear down to his heel, to his knees. Please, Dave, no. But the boy just started talking soft to her about how good looking she was and things like that. And she grabbed his penis with her hand and started moving it.
Which book is this?
After a few minutes, the boy pulled the girl's head down and she started to kiss his penis. That is perks of a wildflower. Perks of being a wallflower. Guys, that is sexually explicit. I didn't want to read that. I don't want my kids reading that without me talking to them first. And I don't think it's out of line for parents to have that opinion. That is sexually explicit by the definitions provided by this board. And I believe by 99.99% of every single person in this country that they read that.
I just request something from the few messages I've gotten from people. Do you provide a trigger warning before reading the description of rape going forward to the session? So,
Look, I think you just highlighted, but if this is going to be in front of minors, it does deserve a trigger warning. Thank you.
it's,
And it deserves that for the children. You just provided an excellent point.
This is different than a child picking up a book, like a teenager picking up a book, reading a summary, and mom saying, I don't know, let me look through it first, like. I mean, we make these analogies to things like movies and things.
But the idea that I just read something that needed a trigger warning is okay to put in front of minors without any safeguard highlights the reason the board has made these decisions.
And the same parts are.
If it needs a trigger warning for adults in an official public hearing, it needs a trigger warning for our kids. Put that down as a quote from me.
Well, no one's disagreeing with you on that. That's why.
So this is sexually explicit content. We have full agreement. Then Fairhope is not in compliance. Period. There's no way to sugarcoat this. And this is not the only excerpt of that graphic. And I'll provide this to anyone who wants to see it afterward. But I'm tired of beating around the bush. There is sexually explicit content in these books that requires a trigger warning. And we're going to protect our children. I'm not going to sit here and tell parents that if it needs a trigger warning, their child should be able to look at it in a library with no parental involvement.
Can you tell us about the 8 you can name on that list?
All right. So, any other input before we move on the board? All right. Look, and I genuinely wanted to hear your thoughts and opinions from Fairhope, and my invitation is still good. Take these thoughts back to the board. Take the packet back to the board that I gave you. Let them look at it and explain to them that in all genuineness, our heart is to serve both sides of the parent equation. There is content here that is sexually explicit. And if they think there's not, I need to hear why not.
Can I get like an official written letter to us saying that the board voted this way? And
I'm glad to write a letter to go together with this packet. I'll give you a digital copy that you can share PDF of this where you can share, as well as a letter explaining that the information contains.
We never got a letter in March when our funding was paused indicating any of that. We learned by watching the footage of the meeting. So.
Well, I called you.
You did.
I called you immediately.
But there was nothing on the APLS letterhead, nothing official.
Well, and if you prefer letter over a phone call, I wanted to respond immediately as fast as I could, and that is why I made the phone call. But if you prefer it to be then followed up by an official letter, I'm glad to do that.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on, next item on the agenda is administrative code certification. Kellen, would you like to give us an update on that?
Oh, sure. So I was able to get the revisions that you guys voted on and approved, submitted to the, LSA. And so they got them published in the Administrative Monthly in December, in December. So then the clock starts, and then for 45 days, they are now in the hands of the legislative committee. They could do they could let them go through, they could contact us and say, it needs to change, it's in their hands right now. If it goes all the way through, just as is, the effective date is, I think it's February 14th, I think it's Valentine's Day, will be the effective date, and that will be the 45 days.
Yeah. So, what was that, February
14th.
Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so then moving on, status on the position that we voted on last meeting to move forward on. There have been some complications on this, just regarding state code and making sure we stay compliant, funding for the position, several other items. I have been working with both Penny, and Kellen, to try to find a solution, and I think I have been able to do so. But it will, I want to give the board an update, and it would require, I feel like, a revote, just on the structure, because of the structural changes, to the position. So because, state personnel would require a new position, a new title of a position to go through a process of approval, it would probably take us many months to get that finalized and approved. And I find that not practical for kind of needing someone, immediately here. So my thought process is, and this is my recommendation to the board, that we would move forward, instead of with a chief of staff, we'll move forward with a replacement of Kellen's old position, which would be assistant director, with a new job title that she and I would work on together. And I would make final approval before submitting the code change, or not code change, sorry, before submitting the job application online for that position.
We get to see the information about how the position is set up and requirements.
Yes. Yes, I would be glad when I finish working with her on what the duties. Because I don't want to work with Kellen, because Kellen is the director, and I want to work with her on what duties that person would fulfill, what they would be doing, because I want it to be a good fit for the office, and I want to work with her on it, and come up with that. And then it would, yes, before when it was listed, we could also send a copy to the board so the board to see it.
Yes. You want to check the loop.
Penny.
I'm gonna jump in here. Because what we discussed, you talked about, the AD.
Right.
That is a state merit position. That would have to go through state personnel. And it is not like posted like the director's job
Okay.
is. You have to, and like this first page, I got it backwards. Because like the physician that y'all wanted to appoint, after some reviewing, I found out y'all cannot.
We can appoint, yeah.
Y'all can't appoint it, that's not, and I've got the code on the very back.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, so y'all can't do that. And then so for the Kellen's position, this front page is what's on file with state personnel. They did a desk audit when we got the second AD. The first one in the pinkish color, that's Katie's position. She does day-to-day, all that. The second position in blue is Kellen's old position. That's LSTA, that's federally funded. So if we're going to change it, we're going to have to go through state personnel and probably have another desk on it. And that is not quick. Even if we keep it as is, it's still not quick, because we would have to get with state personnel, get it reopened, and say open 30 days. And then you would have to file an application with state personnel. And then once it closes, they review and tell us who is qualified and who is not, and then they rank them. And then we get a register. So if you're going through that, and then I also have the minimum qualifications for that position, and it's like anything else, they did a master in library science. So you're looking, if we keep it as.
Is that the only requirement is master in library science, or is there anything else?
And
And then some experience, some administrative, library administrative experience.
What are those?
Yes. And then, if being a merit position, you can't pick and choose what the pay scale is. I've got that in your package. Let's see. It just says considerable professional, governmental, or public library experience in an administrative or consultative capacity. So like I said, that's what's on file. Yep. And then here's also in your packet is Kellen's LSTA duties that she's on. So, or she was on. So.
Did you want to explain about how it's closed, or did you already say
Yeah,
that?
it's like I say, that is not a position that stays. We have open continuous positions within the state, and this is not one of them. So we would have to like petition state personnel and ask them to reopen it. And it's not a big deal, but it does, like I say, it is a process just like anything else with state personnel. But they're very good, easy to work with. But we would get it open, and then we would have it open as many days as we want to, and then people, again, they would have to go online and apply, and it's all through state personnel. Nothing comes through here. We don't see anything until it's finalized, and it's only the people that make the cut.
Okay.
And so depending on how many people apply, we might not even see everybody, depending on how many's in band one. But probably everybody's in band one, but that's the way they do it. We only see band one.
So what's the first time period, the first 30 days from us? What is that in regards
Okay,
to?
we can have it open for 30 days.
Yeah, what open?
The application window.
Okay. So we could do that immediately, but you said we need to change the wording potentially
Yeah,
here
like I
in the
say,
job
because
description.
what we have on file is state personnel for that position, and it's federally funded. No state monies go to here, and Ms. Holman can talk more about that. Kellen's, this position is no longer state funded, it's not in our budget.
Right.
For this year.
Well, I'm not taking care of that. I've talked with the state legislature, with members of the state legislature. We're going to be getting an increase that hopefully far more than one salary, but we're going to be getting an increase, at least fingers crossed. I had very good meetings yesterday.
But like I say, since this is on file and this is what they have for us, we will have to go back and get this changed before we get it open.
Now there can be responsibilities other than what's listed here. This would just be the primary.
If we're paying out of federal monies.
We would not be looking out of state.
It has to be line by line what their job duties are.
Yeah, we have 440s.
Because obviously both of these assistant items here, both the pink and the blue, those members do far more than just those. That would just be their main.
No, exactly, because the way the state, I don't know how familiar you all are with state, we have, we're called 440s, where rules and your responsibilities are on there. And that is what you're graded on. And this position will be supervised by Kellen.
Right.
I know that some people had an issue with that, but this position is.
And I think that's healthy. I think I'm a support of that.
And so anybody, you get hired, these are your duties, and then in 6 months you get off probation, and then so on and so forth.
Okay.
But you're graded and you know what your responsibilities are.
So Kellen, I assume you have a lot of day-to-day duties as director. You're in the hot seat a lot. I feel like you could use someone to help you with the grant program.
Well, if I could just put myself in this race,
you wouldn't need anybody, right? Yeah, exactly. So I feel like we could leave this, like that would support, and if we can find funding out of the state, increase state funding, that would actually leave us more money in the grant program to actually get 2 local libraries. So this is a double win. If I can increase state funding to help cover this position, we can have more money for local libraries out of the grant program. Leave the wording the same. She can help manage the grant program under you, which is what a good assistant director does. We don't have to change the wording there. And then we could also still come up with a full job description with other duties that we can provide to state personnel, is what I'm understanding, correct?
So what is it about appointing a position that we can't do?
Y'all have the
There's
authority.
no authority in state code to give us that.
Yeah, the only authority y'all have is to the
Right.
director.
Okay.
Everybody else, y'all can approve upon nomination of from the director.
Ben, is there
All
anything
y'all
in what I
have.
said that is incorrect or that
I'll
doesn't
be
track?
honest with you, my memory at this age, good enough to remember every single thing you said, but nothing.
Nothing
jumps
raised a
out.
red flag. Yeah. I mean, I think the important thing is we want to do this right, and we want to make sure we have funding. I think I got that covered in state, and of course, if that doesn't come through, we might have to put a pause on this or not do it. But I think I'm fairly confident. I'm confident enough. I think we can move forward.
What would be the timeline of this? Like, when would we be able to have this filled?
You were saying we could open it for 30 days?
We can open it for 30 days, but we have to have a Form 40. We have to have our responsibilities ready when we open it.
When you open. Right. So Kel and I, we need to work on that the next couple of days. Try to get that done. Maybe try to open it Monday. If we can get it done tomorrow and over the weekend, try to get it done by Monday. Open it Monday.
Monday or not, but
Yeah.
yeah, Monday's a holiday.
Don't worry, I'll still be working. I don't get holidays anymore.
Maybe 120 days, maybe. And then who's going to do the interview? So y'all go. Who's going to be on the interview panel?
I mean, I would recommend using the same process we did last time, which would be, we did interviews and bring the top 3 to the board and let them decide. I mean, that's the
Kelly's not going to be on.
Kel and I will be working on everything, the whole process. I told her that before the meeting. I want her involved in every step of the way, including putting together the Form 40, right? Like what the duties are, because I think she's the director. This person will be working under her, and I want it to be a team effort where it fits in and provides the needed guidance. I'm going to be honest. I think for me, I see this position as accomplishing 3 main things. Is what I want to see accomplished. 1, supporting our local libraries with the grant program, because I think it's incredibly important. That's near and dear to my heart. Getting increased state funding will allow us to leave more money for the grant programs for the local libraries, and I really want to highlight and use that to our best of our ability. I love our local libraries and the grant program. So having increased focus there, I think is good. 2 would be interfacing, already interfacing with local libraries on the grant program, would also be interfacing, with libraries on requirements. I know you guys get a lot of questions on, is this allowed? Is this not allowed? What's the definition? Having someone who could be already working with local libraries tasked with also providing that information for our local libraries in a supportive way, I think could be incredibly helpful. I think there's been a lot of misinformation. We've heard that from Fairhope. We've heard that from other libraries where they just don't know. And having someone who could be a resource for them to have the information, know what the requirements are, and be able to have someone to ask questions to directly, who is assigned with that, I think would be healthy.
Yes, can you question?
Sure.
Is that what our library coordinators do?
Yeah, what if, since it's closed, so the next step is to contact personnel?
I say the next step, we make sure we have our funding and then we have our responsibilities in line before we ask, because like I say, we're adding somebody to the merit system.
Leave the funding to me. The funding will be there. I'm very confident in this. I had conversations yesterday preparing for this meeting and talked about specifics with budget chairs and had the funding will be there.
Is there anything else after interfacing with the libraries on the requirements?
I mean, and I will say this. Remember that last session I got a $3 million safety net. Like we're not talking about that level, but I'm very confident of an increase in budget, and definitely enough to cover a single salary. Going over the top, like this is not going to be an issue at all. I mean, I think those are probably the 2 biggest. And then I would say I would want to talk with Kellen about what else the person could do to help. In other areas, because it's a team, right? Yeah. So the third kind of ambiguous, like just be a piece of the puzzle. Anything that's in the works that needs work, needs help in the office.
And John, keep in mind, Kellen's got to be involved in this entire process because who you select is going to be made on her nomination, according to your law.
Well, and that we talked about that. And look, before I even do that, I told Kellen, she's in here working every day. I'm not. She's got to work with this person. She needs to be involved in the process. And going back to also the clear chain of command, I think is also incredibly important. Because I have full faith in Kellen. It's why I supported her to be the director and believe in her leadership abilities. And so, yeah, there's no doubt there that full inclusion of Kellen in every step of the way.
So in other words, y'all would look at the applications and then you would pick 3 and bring them to us?
Correct.
And then we would interview them or read over them or make a decision?
No, it would be Kellen.
Kellen
would be
would.
leading the interviews because she's a merit system employee.
Okay.
And
Kellen has. I mean, the board has the right to say no, but Kellen would pick her person. If the board says no, then she would pick her next.
Okay. So you'll bring us 3, and what will we do with
Well, I don't
the
necessarily that I would even bring
Not-
Kellen and I will
You nominate
Ke-
a nominee.
from that 3?
or no from whoever
From
submitted.
whomever submitted.
Okay.
You would go yay or nay.
Okay.
If you go nay, she brings you their next nominee.
Okay.
It's like how Nancy did with Katie.
Okay.
When
Okay.
her
Okay. Same process. Okay.
Because at the end of the day, Kellen is the director, and we can say no. We have the veto authority, but we want to
Respect her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that, Penny.
Okay, so with that in mind, if we have this motion passes, Kellen and I will sit down and try to get a job description done for you to be able to list. We'll list it as soon as possible because I know I know some board members were anxious. They didn't understand the delay, and it was. I promise you, it was not anyone here trying to be. It was not an attempted delay. It's just we wanted to get it right. We wanted to follow state code and do things the right way.
You're required to follow state.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And I appreciate Penny running the traps on everything and having it set, and Kellen, working with us. So we want to get it done, but we wanted to make sure it's done properly. Perfect. Anything else we need to know? Give us a quick timeline. Like once we get the
y'all get me.
form for
Your responsibility because I'm not going to ask to be this open until we know what we're doing.
Well, they need that information.
right when they're if they're submitting an application, they need to know what the job would be. Yes.
And, well, they'll just open it and it'll just be a generic. This is a listing in Montgomery. The job is in Montgomery for APLS and and here's the salary range and all that. But
So
we need to know what we're doing.
yeah. So responsibilities. Once you have that open for 30 days,
We can open it for 30 days, and then we're at their mercy of when they get the register finalized.
from past experience, how long do you think that
About
normally is?
120 days.
Everybody's
Wow.
State personnel is doing this for everybody in the state. Everybody in the state, and they only have like 90 employees in the building. So they do yeoman's work.
I know I never wanted a job there. Okay, all right. So I think that kind of everybody kind of understands the process, knows where we're at, knows the requirements. I would accept a motion for what we originally talked about, which would be for to move forward with the position as assistant director with the current job description.
That was chief of staff, not assistant director.
We're going to keep it assistant director. Yes, we're going to move it to assistant director with the current what's currently on file with the grants. Kellen and I will be tasked with the responsibility with the responsibility of creating a responsibility document for Penny, and then it will be listed for 30 days, and then we'll be able to make final decision after state personnel gets done and Kellen makes her selection.
I make a motion to go forward with this position.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? We kind of had discussion before the motion was out there, but any other discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. All right, that brings us to new business. Nothing to report.
Wow.
Congratulations. May the record note that the chairman and Kellen deserve a raise for that. A raise from nothing isn't much, by the way.
I'm gonna have to leave. I've got another appointment in Dothan.
Well, thank you. Good having you here. And I think you made it through the critical business anyway. So
Yeah. Wrap it up.
all right. Next item is The first.
Oh, I'm not gonna get.
You are
So that brings us to our director's report. Kellen, if you'd like to run through these items.
Okay. Jennifer, I'm just gonna say something real quick before you do.
Well, and actually, before we move on, new director, giving a report, I want to address just some of the negativity aimed at you at the last meeting and tell you thank you for your work and your service. Like, I know this is not an easy job. You have probably, I get to leave and forget about this. You are stuck with it. And just thank you for your work. I know you are a tireless. I actually saw a quote from you in a press article that I really like. When I was talking about you last night, I was like, what I like about Ellen is she's a peacemaker and she tries to help everyone. And that is sincere. I appreciate your work, but I just want to tell you, I'm sorry about the negativity towards you, and I appreciate your work and service.
Well, we'll go ahead and tell you I've been real good for the ABC board this past few months. So I'm doing my part in the revenue for Alabama. I'm just saying. But I did, since you brought that up, I did want to let y'all know that apparently there was some confusion about when Rebecca Mitchell retired in 2014. I did not apply for that job thing when she retired. And now I was made interim, and we did have 2 inside candidates, but I was not one of them. But I actually had no intention of applying at all. This time, the reason I did is because there's been so much upheaval in the state for these last 30 years that at least I'm a known quantity to the staff in the libraries. And so, and because I just want y'all to know, state librarian has not been my lifelong ambition. Okay, if I could have been anything, I would have been a park ranger. I'm just telling you.
I'm with you on that.
Okay, I'm just letting you know.
You told me that. Told me that.
I know, I forgot. I'm so sorry. Oh, and one other thing, I did want to, I'm going to try to, Katie's not here, she's in New Orleans at a conference this week. But she and I chatted about each board meeting, what we would like to do is highlight a specific library.
I like that.
And what they've done. And I did want to talk about Thomasville. Thomasville is in Clark County, which is southwest of here. One thing they did last summer, which I just thought was fabulous, was during their summer library program, they partnered with their local food bank. And so they would give out shelf-stable meals to families in need, which I thought was fabulous. It had nothing to do with books. I mean, they're just trying to help their community. But one thing that they did take care to do is, which I thought was very sensitive and very considerate, they made sure that they partnered it with their summer library program. So then when people are there, now if they're there and they want to get food, that's fine. But that way it's not stigmatized that people need food.
Right.
You know, and I thought they went to that level, and I just thought that was fabulous. And so I got to go pick another library for next time. So, but they
Love
do
that. That's
they
a great
do-
idea.
they do great things. Okay, Jennifer, you're on.
I just financial update in the board packet. This is as of December 31st, and it's in the just started the second quarter, so this is of the end of the first quarter. And we're right on track with spending. And if anybody has any questions about that, I can move on to the next part unless anybody has questions about the financial part. Okay. Because the next is we had a property audit in December. And
We didn't expect.
no, we did not. We were not due for one, but they're trying to get us in a better time in their audit cycle. It's really small, and they normally do us in the summer. And so they did it in December, and it was good.
Yeah.
And finished in like an hour.
Was there anything missing?
No.
Man, where's the fun in that?
We've had that fun before.
Congratulations, great job.
Yes, good job.
Yes. And then
You can take the credit.
Yes. I'll say everybody, it's a group effort. Everybody does a great job. And then we also, in December, also had our exit conference with the examiners of public accounts for the legal compliance audit that we had. And I expect that report to be coming out soon.
I believe.
They did say that we were going to have one minor finding that had to do with reporting board vacancies to the Secretary of State's website, but they said it was
It's a very common finding across the state.
And he told us how to fix it when they log in and
Yeah.
all the things. So.
And basically what happened is this particular 5-year period, a lot of times we don't have a lot of turnover in the board. These 5 years, I finally had to come up with a cheat sheet, didn't I? Because trying
She had to make a map of who
because
lived.
they asked for every board member that served during that time, when their term was, are they still there? And so during those 5 years, we had 3 of y'all resign before the end of your term. We had one person, she died while she was in term in here. And then we had one board member removed. And then just for fun, I guess, they decided to change the districts on us. And so that was all in that, all that stuff together. And so during that time, I learned a great deal from the audit people.
They're
I
really
mean,
good.
we did not know when we're not in compliance. And so there is there's a rule that they explained to us. It will be in the report. I've already let Denise know because she does our postings for us. And it was just, this 5 years was just so incredibly complicated. And so, but one finding, we'll take it. That we can fix. That we can fix. So, let's see. Are you done?
I'm done. Unless you
Okay.
need to say anything else.
Okay, I'm sorry about this. We had our summer library reading kickoff conference this week. It was on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I have our stats here. 166 libraries were represented. And over the 2 days, we had a total of 208 people who attended. And it went very, very well. I heard nothing but great comments about it. Barbara Curry does a phenomenal job. She's our children's person. God love her, today she's probably in a coma somewhere, because the past 2 days have just been unreal, busy, and we had folks downstairs, they were involved in it, and there were all these breakout sessions, and it was outstanding, it was fabulous. Okay, the administrators meeting will be January the 22nd, which is next Thursday. It is virtual only, just because we don't know about the renovations going on. We have contacted OCLC. They will be tuning in to give us an update on their cataloging and their ILL services. And so, because we have a statewide subscription to OCLC, we provide it free of charge to all of the public libraries, and we pay pretty good for it, don't we? Yeah.
Great.
But we wanted, they said that they would do that for us, and we want them to explain their own product, so it comes from them, because they make some updates. And so that's gonna be next week. Let's see, you should have your front desk certificates. And, well, at least you don't have to call Keith to tell him to come to the front. At the front desk. And so that's it. So, that's all.
I have a question.
Don't ask me something hard.
It's not. The 250-year celebration, is that within the summer reading program? Is that gonna be?
That's gonna be a question for Katie.
Okay.
I think Katie and maybe and Barbara, I don't remember them mentioning that, but I do know that Katie's got some of her staff working on some programming for it, for the 250. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not gonna let that slip by.
Okay, good. Because that's been brought up to me a lot in different libraries.
And the sad thing is, y'all, I was in junior high school, I thought you were going.
I know, that crazy.
That's all.
All right. Well, with that, I think that finishes up our official duties. We do have a couple certification things to sign. Anything with that before we adjourn? Or are we gonna adjourn?
I think we can adjourn, but Keith wants his everything done from him. Keith Walker, he wants it done in here in the boardroom, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. So without any objection, we're going to adjourn, but stay tight, and we'll bring Keith in. So without objection, we are adjourned.
You're perfect.
I have a question.